Welcome to Crime Unveiled Podcast. Dive deep into the mysteries that captivate us. If you appreciate this episode, please consider liking and subscribing to support us. In the annals of true crime, certain cases stand out not only for their horrific nature, but also for the complex web of circumstances that surround them. Today, we delve into one such case, the story of Andrea Yates, a seemingly ordinary housewife and mother from Houston, Texas. On the surface, the Yates family appeared to be a picture of domesticity. Yet beneath the facade lay a tragic story of mental illness, postpartum struggles, and ultimately, an unimaginable act. Indeed, the Andrea Yates case is a chilling reminder of the silent battles fought within seemingly normal families. We aim to dissect the events leading up to June 20th, 2001, a day that etched itself into the public consciousness for its sheer horror. On that day, Andrea Yates systematically drowned her 5 young children in the bathtub of their suburban home. This act sent shockwaves through the nation, prompting questions about mental health, the pressures of motherhood, and the responsibilities of society as a whole. What could drive a mother to commit such an unthinkable act against her own flesh and blood? That is the central question we will be exploring in this series. Let's begin by painting a picture of Andrea Yates' life before this tragedy. She was born in 1964 and grew up in a seemingly stable family. She excelled academically, graduating as valedictorian of her high school class and going on to become a registered nurse. She met Rusty Yates, her future husband, in 1989, and they married shortly thereafter. Initially, their life together appeared unremarkable. They were devoutly religious and had a strong desire to have a large family. However, certain details begin to emerge that hint at underlying troubles. Yes, it's crucial to examine the trajectory of Andrea's mental health. Following the birth of their first child, Noah, in 1994, Andrea experienced postpartum depression. This was the first indication of her vulnerability to mental illness. As the Yates family grew, with the subsequent births of John, Paul, Luke, and Mary, Andrea's mental state became increasingly fragile. She experienced episodes of psychosis, including hallucinations and delusions, requiring multiple hospitalizations. Understanding these struggles is vital to comprehending the tragic events that unfolded. The timeline of Andrea's mental health struggles in relation to her pregnancies is a critical aspect of this case. After the birth of her 4th child, Luke, Andrea's condition worsened significantly. She attempted suicide and was diagnosed with postpartum psychosis. She was prescribed medication and underwent various treatments, but her recovery was inconsistent. It is important to note the role of religious influence in their lives, as their pastor, Michael Waroniecki, advocated against medication, further complicating the situation. Absolutely. The influence of external factors, especially the religious counsel they received, adds another layer of complexity. Waroniecki's teachings seemingly discouraged the use of psychiatric medication and emphasize strict adherence to religious doctrines. This raises questions about the potential impact of these beliefs on Andrea's treatment and her overall mental state. It's a difficult and sensitive area to explore, but crucial for a comprehensive understanding of the case. Following the birth of their 5th child, Mary, in 2000, Andrea's mental health deteriorated drastically. She was hospitalized again, and her doctors advised against having more children. Despite this, she stopped taking her medication and conceived again shortly after being discharged, a decision that would have profound consequences. This period leading up to the drownings is marked by increasing desperation, delusions, and a palpable sense of impending tragedy. And within this context of escalating mental illness and external pressures, we reach the fateful day of June 20th, 2001. We will meticulously examine the events of that day, drawing on eyewitness accounts, police reports, and court transcripts. We will reconstruct the moments leading up to the drownings, the immediate aftermath, and the subsequent investigation. It's a harrowing story, but one we must tell to understand the complexities of this tragic case. Before the tragedy, the Yates family resided in a quiet suburban neighborhood near Clear Lake, Texas. Neighbors described the area as peaceful, family-oriented, with tree-lined streets and a strong sense of community. Children played freely on sidewalks, and backyard barbecues were a common weekend occurrence. It was the kind of place where people felt safe, where doors were often left unlocked, and neighbors knew each other by name. The Yateses, outwardly, seemed to fit right into this idyllic setting. They were seen as a devoutly religious family, actively involved in their local church. Rusty Yates, Andrea's husband, worked as a NASA engineer, a respected and stable profession. This backdrop of normalcy makes the events that unfolded all the more jarring and difficult to comprehend. It highlights the deceptive nature of appearances and how even in the most seemingly tranquil environments, darkness can lurk beneath the surface. Andrea was described by some neighbors as a quiet and reserved individual, dedicated to homeschooling her children. She often kept to herself, but there were no outward signs of distress or aberrant behavior that would foreshadow the horrific acts to come. The children were seen as well-behaved and polite. The family often attended church services together, participating in community events. Some neighbors recall seeing Andrea pushing a stroller with several of her children, a seemingly ordinary image of motherhood. They seemed, on the surface, like a loving, close-knit family. The contrast between this image of domesticity and the brutal reality of what happened inside their home is stark and unsettling. It emphasizes the importance of looking beyond the surface and recognizing that even in seemingly perfect settings, individuals can be grappling with hidden struggles. Their home, a modest single-story house, was described as always being neat and tidy. There were no outward indications of chaos or neglect. Inside, Andrea maintained a structured routine for her children, prioritizing their education and religious instruction. The home was filled with children's toys, books, and religious materials. Neighbors occasionally heard the sounds of children playing or singing hymns, further solidifying the image of a typical, loving family. This carefully constructed facade makes the subsequent events even more perplexing. It raises questions about the pressures Andrea may have been facing internally, pressures that remained invisible to the outside world. Witnesses recall seeing Rusty Yates leaving for work each morning, seemingly unaware of the turmoil his wife was experiencing. He was described as a hard-working and dedicated father, providing for his family. There are reports of him interacting with his children in the yard, playing catch or helping them with their bicycles, seemingly typical fatherly activities. The contrast between this outward appearance of a normal family life and the hidden struggles within is deeply disturbing. It underscores the challenges of understanding the complexities of human behavior and the difficulty of recognizing hidden suffering, even in those closest to us. The community surrounding the Yates family was deeply religious, with a strong emphasis on traditional family values. This context is crucial to understanding the pressures Andrea may have felt to conform to a specific ideal of motherhood and wifehood. Church attendance was a regular part of life for many families in the area, and there was a strong sense of community and support within the church. However, this environment could also create pressure to maintain a certain image and hide any struggles or doubts. This raises questions about the role societal expectations may have played in Andrea's mental state and the tragic events that followed. The Yates family had moved several times, residing in various states before settling in Clear Lake. They lived in a mobile home for a period, eventually moving into their suburban house. This frequent relocation suggests a certain degree of instability or restlessness, although the reasons for these moves remain unclear. Understanding their history and the potential stressors associated with moving and adjusting to new environments might offer further insights into the family dynamics and Andrea's mental state leading up to the tragedy. The Yates family were known to homeschool their children, a decision rooted in their religious beliefs and desire to provide a specific type of education. While homeschooling can be a positive choice for some families, it also presents unique challenges, particularly for the primary caregiver. The isolation and constant demands of homeschooling multiple children could have contributed to Andrea's increasing stress and feelings of being overwhelmed. This aspect of their lifestyle is important to consider when examining the factors that may have contributed to the tragic outcome. Despite the seemingly normal exterior, there were subtle signs that Andrea was struggling with her mental health. Some neighbors reported seeing her looking tired or withdrawn at times, but these observations were often dismissed as the normal fatigue of a busy mother. In hindsight, these subtle cues might have been indicators of a deeper, more serious underlying mental health issue. This highlights the importance of recognizing and addressing even seemingly minor changes in behavior, as they can sometimes be indicative of a larger problem. We left off discussing Andrea Yates' seemingly ordinary life in Houston, Texas. A registered nurse, married to Russell Yates, they lived a seemingly typical suburban life. They homeschooled their children, were active in their church, and presented a united front to their community. This normalcy, this facade of a loving family, makes the events of June 20, 2001 all the more jarring. It's important to understand the context of their daily lives, the rhythm of their routine, to grasp the magnitude of the tragedy that unfolded. This wasn't a family known for violence or discord, at least not outwardly. So, what could have possibly been happening beneath the surface? That is the question that has haunted investigators and the public for decades. You're right to highlight the seeming normalcy of their lives. Reports indicate they were devoted to their faith, actively participating in their religious community. Neighbors described them as quiet, reserved, yet seemingly content. Andrea was the primary caregiver for the children, managing the homeschooling curriculum and household duties. Russell worked as a computer engineer, providing for the family. This image of domesticity is precisely what makes the case so disturbing. It challenges our assumptions about where violence can erupt, and forces us to examine the complexities hidden within seemingly ordinary lives. We must piece together the subtle indicators, the almost imperceptible cracks in the foundation of their family life, to understand the trajectory towards that horrific day. One element that adds a layer of complexity to this case is the family's nomadic lifestyle in the years leading up to the tragedy. Before settling in Houston, the Yates family lived in various locations, often in cramped quarters, including a bus. This constant movement, the lack of stability, undoubtedly contributed to the pressures Andrea faced. While outwardly, they maintained a semblance of order, the frequent relocations suggest a potential undercurrent of stress and instability that might have gone unnoticed by outsiders. It begs the question, did this constant upheaval exacerbate existing vulnerabilities within the family dynamic? It's a crucial point. The stress of constant relocation, coupled with the demands of raising 5 young children, likely took a significant toll on Andrea's mental well-being. We have to consider the cumulative effect of these stressors, particularly on someone already grappling with mental health challenges, as we later discovered. The bus, intended as a symbol of religious devotion and a simpler life, could have inadvertently become a pressure cooker, amplifying existing tensions and isolating Andrea further. It's a stark contrast to the image of the serene suburban life they later projected. Let's delve deeper into Andrea's mental health history. Prior to the incident, she experienced postpartum psychosis following the birth of her 4th child. She had been hospitalized and received treatment, but her conditions seemed to fluctuate. There were instances of suicidal ideation and extreme religious preoccupation, which raised concerns about the adequacy of her ongoing care and the support system available to her. This history of mental illness provides a crucial lens through which to understand her actions, though it certainly doesn't excuse them. And this is where the narrative takes a darker turn. After the birth of their 5th child, Mary, Andrea's mental state deteriorated significantly. She exhibited signs of severe depression, anxiety, and delusional thinking. Reports indicate she was struggling with intrusive thoughts and experiencing difficulty coping with the demands of her growing family. This deterioration seems to have occurred despite medical intervention and ongoing treatment, highlighting the complexities of mental illness and the challenges in managing severe postpartum psychosis. What strikes me is the contrast between the image the Yates family projected to the outside world and the internal struggles Andrea was facing. There's a dissonance between the picture of a devout, homeschooling mother and the reality of a woman battling severe mental illness. This discrepancy underscores the importance of looking beyond surface appearances and recognizing the hidden battles individuals may be fighting, particularly within the confines of their own homes. Absolutely. And this is where the story becomes truly tragic. The seemingly ordinary morning of June 20th, 2001, would shatter the illusion of normalcy surrounding the Yates family. While Russell was at work, believing Andrea was under the care of a visiting nurse, she methodically drowned each of her 5 children in the bathtub. This act, incomprehensible to most, forces us to confront the devastating consequences of untreated severe mental illness and the urgent need for greater understanding and support for those who suffer. We've established Andrea Yates' history of postpartum depression and psychosis. Now we delve into the tragic events of June 20th, 2001. The day began like any other for the Yates family. Seemingly, Rusty Yates, Andrea's husband, left for work, leaving Andrea alone with their 5 children: Noah, John, Paul, Luke, and Mary. It's important to remember the sheer weight of responsibility Andrea bore, caring for 5 young children while battling severe mental illness, a situation largely unrecognized or underestimated by those around her. The seemingly ordinary morning would soon descend into unimaginable horror. We must meticulously piece together the events that unfolded within the Yates household that day, based on the official reports and subsequent testimonies. The timeline is crucial here. Rusty left for work around 8 a.m. According to Andrea's later confession, she filled the bathtub shortly after Rusty's departure. The chilling sequence of events began with 7-year-old Noah, the oldest. Andrea led him to the bathroom, and as the official reports detail, she drowned him in the tub. The methodical nature of her actions is disturbing. After drowning Noah, she laid his body in a bed, covering him with a sheet. This act, the covering of the body, is a detail investigators often scrutinize. What was the motivation behind this specific action? Was it a desperate attempt to deny the reality of what she had done? A fleeting moment of remorse? Or something else entirely? These are questions that continue to haunt this case. Following Noah's death, Andrea turned to her 5-year-old son, John. The same horrific scene played out again. She led him to the tub and drowned him. The repetition of this act amplifies the chilling nature of the crime. After drowning John, she placed his body next to Noah's. The systematic way she carried out these acts suggests a disturbing detachment, a chilling disconnect from the enormity of her actions. It's difficult to comprehend the mental state that would allow such a horrific sequence of events to unfold. Then came Paul, their 3-year-old son. The pattern continued. A chillingly methodical act of violence against her own children. One can only imagine the terror these young children must have experienced in their final moments. Andrea placed Paul's body with his brother's. The accumulating bodies, laid side by side, paint a truly horrifying picture of the scene within the Yates home. Each child, a life extinguished, a future stolen. Luke, the youngest son, just 2 years old, was next. The systematic nature of Andrea's actions continues, reinforcing the disturbingly detached nature of her actions. The vulnerability of these young children, their complete dependence on their mother, makes the tragedy even more profound. The thought of their final moments is almost unbearable. Andrea placed Luke's small body with his brother's. Finally, there was 6-month-old Mary, the youngest, a baby girl, unable to understand the horrors unfolding around her. Andrea drowned Mary, completing the horrific act. 5 young lives extinguished. It's a scene of unimaginable tragedy, a testament to the devastating power of untreated mental illness. After drowning all 5 children, Andrea called 911, reporting a multiple drowning at her residence. She then called her husband, Rusty, urging him to come home. The calmness with which she made these calls is another chilling detail. What was going through her mind in those moments? What prompted her to finally reach out for help after committing such unspeakable acts? The details of this case are incredibly disturbing. The methodical nature of the drownings, the ages of the children, the sheer number of victims. It's a case that continues to raise questions about the nature of postpartum psychosis, the responsibilities of families and healthcare systems, and the tragic consequences of untreated mental illness. In the next segment, we'll examine the immediate aftermath of the crime, the arrival of the police, and the initial interviews with Andrea Yates. The scene at the Yates residence that day, June 20th, 2001, was one of unimaginable chaos. First responders described a house filled with an eerie silence punctuated by the sounds of their own movements. The children, ranging in age from 6 months to 7 years, were discovered in various locations in the master bedroom. The water in the tub, we learned from the reports, was still remarkably high. The positioning of the bodies, as documented in the official reports, painted a stark picture of the final moments. It's difficult to reconcile the normalcy of the suburban setting with the horrific act that unfolded within its walls. The scene must have been utterly devastating for those first on the scene. The silence, the stillness of the children, contrasted sharply with the typical sounds of a family home. This juxtaposition, I believe, is part of what makes this case so disturbing. Indeed. The neighbors' accounts, pieced together from various interviews and news reports, reveal a growing sense of unease in the days and weeks leading up to the tragedy. Several neighbors recalled seeing Andrea pacing in her yard, appearing distraught. One neighbor mentioned Andrea's visible weight loss and the vacant look in her eyes. These seemingly minor details, at the time, took on a chilling significance in the aftermath. They became fragments of a larger puzzle, hinting at a deepening crisis. The community was struggling to comprehend how such a tragedy could occur within their seemingly peaceful neighborhood. There's a sense of collective guilt, perhaps, a questioning of whether signs were missed, whether more could have been done. This communal grief, intertwined with unanswered questions, really hung over the area in the days following the discovery. Rusty Yates' demeanor in those early press conferences is particularly striking. He appeared composed, almost stoic, while expressing his complete disbelief. His statements emphasized Andrea's mental health struggles, portraying her not as a monster, but as a victim of her own illness. This perspective, while understandably biased given his relationship with Andrea, became a key element in the public's perception of the case. It shifted the narrative, at least initially, from a simple act of murder to a complex tragedy fueled by mental illness. This early framing of the narrative undoubtedly played a significant role in the subsequent legal proceedings. The media's coverage at the time was relentless. Every detail, from Andrea's medical history to Rusty's work schedule, was dissected and analyzed. The constant barrage of information, often speculative and sensationalized, further contributed to the growing sense of bewilderment. The case quickly became a national conversation, sparking debates about postpartum psychosis, the pressures of motherhood, and the responsibilities of family members in caring for someone with severe mental illness. It was a media frenzy that, in many ways, shaped the public's understanding of the case and potentially influenced the jury's perception. The sheer number of children involved amplified the horror. 5 young lives extinguished. This scale of loss is almost incomprehensible. It's a detail that continues to haunt those who followed the case. The individual stories of each child, Noah, John, Paul, Luke, and Mary, began to emerge in the weeks following the tragedy, painting a picture of a vibrant, loving family shattered by an unimaginable act. This personalizing of the victims, I believe, further intensified the public's emotional response to the case. The police investigation was meticulous, focusing on the physical evidence collected at the scene, the interviews with Rusty Yates, and the medical records documenting Andrea's history of mental illness. The timeline of the morning, reconstructed from witness accounts and forensic evidence, became a critical element in the prosecution's case. It provided a chillingly detailed account of Andrea's actions seemingly at odds with the loving mother portrayed by her husband and family. The stark contrast between these two images of Andrea became central to the legal battle that would ensue. The community's response, particularly in the immediate aftermath, was a mix of shock, grief, and a palpable fear. The idea that a mother could harm her own children struck a primal nerve, shattering the illusion of safety within the suburban ideal. This fear was compounded by the lack of clear answers, the inability to comprehend the motivations behind such an act. Candlelight vigils were held, memorials were created, and yet the sense of unease lingered. The community grappled not only with the loss of 5 innocent lives, but also with the unsettling reality that such darkness could exist so close to home. The case became a grim reminder of the silent struggles many families face, the hidden battles with mental illness that often go unnoticed until tragedy strikes. Andrea's story, though extreme, highlighted the critical need for increased awareness, access to mental health resources, and greater support for families grappling with the challenges of mental illness. The ripple effects of this case extended far beyond the confines of that suburban Houston neighborhood, prompting a national dialogue about a critical issue that often remains shrouded in silence and stigma. Let's delve deeper into Andrea Yates' psychological profile. On the surface, she presented as a devoted mother and wife, dedicated to her family and faith. Neighbors described her as quiet and reserved, perhaps even shy. Home videos show her interacting with her children, seemingly loving and attentive. However, beneath this facade, a darker, more troubled reality was brewing. Her medical history paints a picture of a woman struggling with severe postpartum depression and psychosis, exacerbated by multiple pregnancies in rapid succession. This contrast between her outward persona and her internal struggles is crucial to understanding the tragedy that unfolded. We need to examine how these two seemingly disparate realities coexisted and ultimately collided. Exactly. The medical records and expert testimonies presented during the trial revealed a history of suicide attempts, hallucinations, and delusional thinking. She had been hospitalized multiple times for psychiatric care, diagnosed with postpartum psychosis, and prescribed various medications. There were documented instances of her expressing bizarre and disturbing thoughts, including harming her children. Yet she was also described as being highly intelligent and articulate, capable of hiding the severity of her illness from those around her. This ability to mask her internal turmoil adds another layer of complexity to the case. It raises questions about whether the warning signs were missed or dismissed, and whether more could have been done to prevent the tragedy. The fact that Rusty Yates, her husband, continued to encourage more children despite her deteriorating mental health is a point of contention. He acknowledged being aware of her struggles, yet seemed to underestimate the severity of her illness. Some argue that his religious beliefs, which emphasized procreation and wifely submission, played a role in his decisions. This raises complex questions about the role of faith and personal responsibility in such a tragic situation. Was he also in denial about the depth of her suffering, or did he genuinely believe she would recover with faith and prayer? It's a difficult question to answer definitively, He maintained that he believed she was recovering and that her mental state was improving between episodes. He consulted with doctors and followed their recommendations regarding her medication. However, the sheer number of pregnancies and the stress they undoubtedly placed on Andrea's fragile mental state cannot be ignored. It's a complex interplay of factors, including religious beliefs, personal responsibility, and the limitations of medical understanding at the time. The court transcripts reveal a chilling account of Andrea's state of mind leading up to the drownings. She described feeling overwhelmed by the demands of motherhood and believed she was a bad mother, failing her children. She expressed the delusional belief that drowning them was the only way to save them from eternal damnation. This distorted reality highlights the profound impact of her psychosis. It underscores the tragic disconnect between her actions and her perceived intentions. The idea that she believed she was acting out of love, however twisted, is one of the most disturbing aspects of this case. It speaks to the profound distortion of reality that severe mental illness can create. The fact that she methodically drowned each child, one by one, suggests a level of premeditation that is difficult to reconcile with the image of a loving mother. This stark contrast further emphasizes the tragic consequences of untreated or inadequately treated mental illness. The jury's initial verdict of guilty, later overturned on appeal, sparked a national debate about the role of mental illness in criminal responsibility. The case highlighted the challenges of understanding and adjudicating crimes committed by individuals suffering from severe mental disorders. It forced society to confront the difficult questions of accountability versus compassion and the adequacy of our mental health systems. And the subsequent verdict of not guilty by reason of insanity, while acknowledging the profound impact of her mental illness, didn't provide easy answers. It left many grappling with the complexities of the case and the enduring questions it raised about motherhood, mental health, and the justice system. The Andrea Yates case continues to be a tragic reminder of the devastating consequences of untreated mental illness and the ongoing need for greater understanding and support for those who suffer. Let's delve into the investigative process following the discovery of the children. The crime scene was chaotic and heartbreaking, understandably impacting the initial stages of the investigation. First responders were faced with the unimaginable, and the sheer horror of the scene could have potentially overshadowed crucial details. The immediate focus, naturally, was on Andrea Yates, given her presence at the scene and her 911 call. However, the possibility of other involvement, however remote, needed to be explored. Were all avenues thoroughly investigated in those crucial early hours? Did the overwhelming nature of the crime scene inadvertently create tunnel vision? These questions are critical for understanding the full scope of the investigation. Absolutely. The initial shock and the emotional impact of the case could have influenced the direction of the investigation. While the focus on Andrea Yates was understandable given the circumstances, a comprehensive investigation demands exploring all possibilities, even if they seem unlikely. Did investigators thoroughly examine the house for signs of forced entry, or any evidence to suggest the presence of another individual? Were neighbors interviewed extensively to determine if they had observed anything unusual in the days or hours leading up to the tragic event? These seemingly small details could have held significant clues. The pressure to quickly resolve a high-profile case can sometimes lead to overlooking potentially crucial pieces of the puzzle. Precisely. Now, let's talk about missed leads or unexplored avenues. One aspect that perhaps warrants further scrutiny is the possibility of taunting communications or any indication of external influence on Andrea Yates. While postpartum psychosis was the primary focus, it's crucial to consider all angles. Were there any phone calls, letters, or any form of communication that might have contributed to her mental state? Exploring this aspect thoroughly is essential, even if it leads to a dead end, to ensure a complete understanding of the events leading up to the tragedy. Sometimes seemingly insignificant details can hold the key to unlocking a deeper understanding of a complex case like this. Investigating potential external influences is vital in such cases. Even if the primary focus is on mental health, ruling out external factors is crucial for a complete picture. Did investigators analyze her personal belongings, including diaries or journals, for any evidence of outside pressures or unusual communications? Did they examine her internet activity or social connections for any signs of concerning interactions? These digital footprints can often offer insights into a person's state of mind and potential external influences. It's important to meticulously examine all possible sources of information. Let's shift our attention to the aspect of false hope during the investigation. Were there any points during the investigative process where the direction seemed promising, only to lead to a dead end? Such instances can be both frustrating and time-consuming, diverting resources and potentially delaying the pursuit of more fruitful lines of inquiry. Understanding these false leads is crucial for evaluating the overall effectiveness of the investigation. Were there any witness accounts that initially appeared significant but later proved unreliable or irrelevant? False hope in an investigation can be incredibly challenging. Were there any initial suspects or persons of interest who were later cleared? Did forensic analysis provide any initial leads that ultimately proved inconclusive? These false starts can consume valuable time and resources, and it's important to understand how they shape the direction of the investigation. In high-pressure cases like this, the urgency to find answers can sometimes lead investigators down the wrong path. Indeed, the investigation into the Andrea Yates case was undoubtedly complex and challenging. Examining the potential missed leads, any sign of external pressures, and the instances of false hope can offer valuable insights into the intricacies of the case. While the focus on Andrea Yates's mental state was central, a comprehensive investigation demands exploring all avenues, however unlikely they may seem. This meticulous approach is crucial, not only for achieving justice, but also for learning from such tragic events. Absolutely. Understanding the investigative process, including the challenges and potential missteps, is critical for ensuring accountability and improving future investigations. The Andrea Yates case serves as a sobering reminder of the importance of thoroughness, attention to detail, and a commitment to exploring all possible angles in the pursuit of truth and justice. Cases like this underscore the need for a multifaceted approach, considering not only the immediate circumstances, but also the broader context and potential contributing factors. The sheer magnitude of this case, 5 young lives extinguished, sent shockwaves through not only the Yates family, but also the Houston community and beyond. The ripple effect of grief and trauma spread far and wide, impacting neighbors, friends, church members, and even those who simply followed the news coverage. This sort of tragedy leaves an indelible mark on a community's psyche, a sense of collective vulnerability and shared sorrow. The long-term psychological effects on those closest to the family are particularly profound, struggling with unanswered questions and the enduring pain of loss. Imagine trying to reconcile the image of a loving mother with the unimaginable act she committed. It's a burden they carry, a weight that time may lessen but never fully erase. Absolutely. The case ignited heated discussions about postpartum psychosis, mental health care accessibility, and the pressures faced by mothers. Many women, particularly those who had experienced similar struggles with postpartum depression or psychosis, felt a deep sense of empathy for Andrea Yates, recognizing the desperate internal struggle she must have endured. However, that empathy did not negate the profound sorrow and horror felt for the children. The community grappled with this complex duality, acknowledging the tragedy, while also recognizing the broader systemic issues surrounding mental health care. It highlighted the critical need for increased awareness, support, and resources for new mothers, emphasizing the importance of recognizing and addressing postpartum mental health issues before they escalate to a crisis. The long-term effects of this case are still felt today. It forced a societal reckoning with the realities of postpartum mental illness, pushing the conversation into the mainstream. Before the Yates case, postpartum psychosis was often misunderstood, stigmatized, and rarely discussed openly. The case served as a tragic catalyst, pushing medical professionals, policymakers, and the public to confront the profound impact of untreated mental illness on individuals and families. This increased awareness has undoubtedly led to greater access to resources and support for new mothers, though the fight for adequate mental health care continues. The impact on Rusty Yates, Andrea's husband, was particularly devastating. He lost his entire family in a single horrific event, and then had to navigate the ensuing legal proceedings, public scrutiny, and immense personal grief. While he maintained his wife's innocence based on her mental state, he also had to cope with the unimaginable loss of his children. His journey through grief, forgiveness, and advocacy for mental health awareness has been a testament to his resilience and his commitment to ensuring that other families don't suffer a similar fate. It's a complex and deeply personal journey that underscores the enduring impact of this tragedy. The trauma experienced by first responders, investigators, and even jury members also cannot be overlooked. These individuals were exposed to a profoundly disturbing crime scene and had to grapple with the emotional weight of the case. The images and details of the children's deaths likely left lasting psychological scars. Such experiences can lead to secondary trauma, compassion fatigue, and other mental health challenges. It highlights the importance of providing support and resources not only to the victims' families, but also to those on the front lines who bear witness to such tragedies. The case also raised important questions about the role of religious beliefs in mental health treatment. The Yates family's devout religious beliefs were a central aspect of their lives, and some have questioned how these beliefs might have influenced Andrea's mental state and the decisions surrounding her care. It's a delicate and complex issue, as faith can provide comfort and support, but can also, in some cases, complicate mental health treatment. The case underscored the need for a sensitive and nuanced approach to mental health care that respects individual beliefs, while also ensuring access to evidence-based treatment. The lasting legacy of the Andrea Yates case is undoubtedly complex. It serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of untreated mental illness, the importance of early intervention, and the critical need for ongoing support for individuals and families struggling with postpartum mental health challenges. While the tragedy remains deeply etched in our collective memory, it has also spurred significant progress in raising awareness and improving access to mental health care, hopefully preventing similar tragedies in the future. Ultimately, the Andrea Yates case compels us to confront uncomfortable truths about our society's understanding and treatment of mental illness. It serves as a tragic case study, prompting us to ask difficult questions about our support systems, our healthcare system, and our societal attitudes towards mental health. The long-term impact of this case continues to shape conversations and drive change, urging us to prioritize mental health and to create a more compassionate and supportive environment for all. The weeks leading up to the tragedy painted a grim picture of Andrea Yates's deteriorating mental state. Multiple hospitalizations, diagnoses of postpartum psychosis and major depressive disorder, and a documented history of suicide attempts all pointed towards a deeply troubled individual. Her husband, Rusty, despite being aware of her precarious mental health, seemed to underestimate the gravity of the situation. He was advised against leaving her alone with the children, a recommendation he tragically disregarded on that fateful morning. The timeline of the drownings, pieced together from the crime scene and Rusty's later testimony, reveals a methodical and horrifying sequence of events. Each child, systematically led to the bathroom and submerged in the bathtub, paints a chilling image of a mind consumed by a dark and incomprehensible force. The sheer incomprehensibility of the act is what makes this case so profoundly disturbing. 5 young lives extinguished by their own mother. The investigation, while straightforward in establishing the physical act, delved into the complexities of Yates's psyche. The question wasn't who committed the crime, but why? Expert opinions diverged on the degree to which Yates's mental illness influenced her actions. Some argued that her psychosis completely robbed her of rational thought and control, while others suggested a degree of awareness, albeit distorted by her illness. This debate became central to the legal proceedings that would follow, raising complex questions about culpability and the intersection of mental illness and the law. The crime scene itself was stark and deeply unsettling. The children's bodies, recovered from the bathtub, bore silent witness to the horror that unfolded within those walls. The methodical nature of the drownings, the absence of any signs of struggle, all spoke to a premeditated act. Yet juxtaposed against this grim reality was the demeanor of Andrea Yates herself. Her calm, almost detached recounting of the events to the police officers who first arrived at the scene was perhaps the most chilling aspect of the entire investigation. It was a stark disconnect between the enormity of the crime and the apparent lack of emotional response from the perpetrator. That apparent detachment became a key piece of the puzzle for investigators. Was it a manifestation of her severe mental illness? A dissociative state brought on by the trauma of her actions? Or was it something else entirely? A calculated coldness that defied explanation? The interviews with Rusty Yates provided further insight into the family's dynamic. He described a loving, albeit deeply troubled wife struggling under the immense pressure of raising 5 young children while battling a debilitating mental illness. His account, while heartbreaking, also raised questions about the level of support and supervision provided to Andrea in the face of her escalating mental health crisis. The breakthrough in the case, if it could be called that, came with Andrea's confession. She readily admitted to drowning each of her children, providing a chillingly detailed account of the events of that morning. Her confession, coupled with the overwhelming physical evidence, solidified her as the perpetrator. The focus then shifted from establishing guilt to understanding the underlying motivations. The legal proceedings that followed would become a battleground for expert opinions on postpartum psychosis, its impact on criminal responsibility, and the adequacy of the support system around Andrea Yates. The arrest, while a necessary step in the legal process, felt almost perfunctory in the face of such a complex tragedy. It wasn't a moment of triumph or closure, but rather a somber acknowledgement of the profound loss and the unanswered questions that lingered. The image of Andrea Yates, a petite, seemingly ordinary woman being led away in handcuffs, became a symbol of the devastating consequences of untreated mental illness and the societal failures that contributed to this unimaginable tragedy. The case transcended the realm of a simple crime investigation and became a stark reminder of the fragility of the human mind and the desperate need for greater understanding and support for those battling mental illness. The subsequent legal proceedings, which we'll delve into in the next episode, would further illuminate the complexities of this case. The jury's initial verdict, the appeals, the retrial, and the ultimate outcome all paint a multifaceted picture of a justice system grappling with the intersection of mental illness and criminal responsibility. The Andrea Yates case isn't just a story of a crime, but a stark and unsettling exploration of the human condition at its most vulnerable, and the societal implications of untreated mental illness. And it serves as a haunting reminder that sometimes the greatest mysteries lie not in who committed a crime, but in the labyrinthine workings of a troubled mind driven to the unthinkable. It's a chilling thought, isn't it, to consider that such devastation unfolded within the seemingly ordinary walls of a suburban home. We've spent hours dissecting the Andrea Yates case, examining the timeline, the psychiatric evaluations, the courtroom testimonies. And yet, a sense of unsettling ambiguity remains. 5 young lives extinguished by their own mother. A woman described by neighbors as quiet, even shy. The dissonance is jarring, a stark reminder that the face of evil can often hide in plain sight, masked by the mundane routines of everyday life. We can analyze the evidence, retrace her steps, but can we truly understand the darkness that consumed her? The question of understanding is precisely what makes this case so profoundly disturbing. We have explored the documented history of Andrea's mental illness, the postpartum psychosis, the documented delusions. We've heard expert opinions on the efficacy of her treatment, the role of her husband, Rusty, in managing her care, and the overwhelming pressure she faced raising 5 young children. Yet, understanding the contributing factors doesn't equate to comprehending the act itself. How does a mother, driven by what she perceived as a warped sense of salvation, systematically drown each of her children? It defies logic, it defies empathy, and it forces us to confront the uncomfortable reality that sometimes there are no easy answers, no satisfying explanations. The legal system, designed to provide justice and closure, struggled to grapple with the complexities of this case. The initial guilty verdict, later overturned due to erroneous expert testimony, highlights the challenges of applying legal frameworks to the realm of severe mental illness. Where does personal responsibility end and the ravages of psychosis begin? The jury ultimately found Andrea not guilty by reason of insanity, a verdict that acknowledged her mental state but offered little solace to those left grappling with the enormity of the loss. The legal outcome, while perhaps just, leaves us with a lingering sense of unease, and that unease extends beyond the courtroom, permeating the very fabric of our societal understanding of mental health. The Andrea Yates case serves as a tragic testament to the often overlooked and undertreated crisis of postpartum psychosis. It exposed the gaps in our support systems for new mothers, the stigma surrounding mental illness, and the devastating consequences of inadequate care. While this case brought these issues to the forefront, it also underscores the enduring need for continued vigilance and advocacy for improved mental health resources. The ripples of this case extend far beyond the Yates family. It has sparked crucial conversations about the intersection of mental health, motherhood, and the legal system. It has forced us to confront our own biases and assumptions about what constitutes sanity and responsibility. And it has left an indelible mark on the true crime landscape, serving as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of ordinary lives. The story of Andrea Yates is a story of profound loss, a story of a system struggling to address the complexities of mental illness, and a story that continues to haunt us with its unanswered questions. And perhaps the most unsettling question of all remains: could a tragedy like this happen again? Given the continuing struggles with access to mental health care, the persistent stigma surrounding postpartum disorders, and the complexities of navigating the legal system in cases of severe mental illness, the uncomfortable truth is that it could. The case of Andrea Yates serves not just as a tragic historical account, but as a stark warning, a call to action for greater awareness, understanding, and support for those battling the silent demons of mental illness. Indeed, the case leaves us with a profound sense of sadness, a chilling reminder of the fragility of the human mind, and a lingering question that echoes in the silence: How many more Andrea Yateses are out there, silently suffering, hidden in plain sight? A chilling thought to end on, and one that we all must contemplate. Thank you for joining us for this exploration of the Andrea Yates case. If you appreciate this episode, please consider liking and subscribing to support us. Thank you for walking with us through the shadows. The story doesn't end here. It lingers, echoing through time, reminding us that the darkest truths often hide in plain sight. Until next time, stay curious and stay vigilant. Goodbye.